Hello, who is your God? The God of the Bible? The God of a certain faith founded in the Bible? Or other ancient scriptures or traditions? Who is your God? We find in John 3:16, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." The God in this verse is a very generic God. It says that the Greek word is theos, or theos, and it means the supreme divinity, the exceeding great God. And this was a very general term for God. And we find that Nicodemus was a ruler of the Jews. He came to Jesus by night, and talking to Jesus, knew that Jesus was from God because of the miracles and things that he did. So, who is your God? I would say that your God is different from my God, and even my God is different from my wife's God. We have the same foundation, faith in the same God, in Jesus Christ, but the application and faith in everyday life is differently. The understanding is different. But who is your God? The God of a certain faith founded in the Bible or ancient scriptures or traditions? It's not unusual to have a different understanding of God. In John chapter 4, verse 22, Jesus was talking to this woman at the well in Samaria, and the Samaritan woman said, "Well, we worship God in the mountains here." And Jesus told her, says, "You worship you know not what. What we worship for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him." This is the key here. Who is your God? This is my God also. In John 4:24, he says, "God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and truth." God is a spirit. You cannot put him into a box. You couldn't make a statue out of him. You can't come up with rules and things that would define him. He's a spirit, or regulate him that, well, he does this and he doesn't do this. But who is your God? Is he a judgmental God? Is he a merciful God? What does he look like? Who is your God? Do you ever think about these things? And do you think if you knew these things, would it make you more strong in your faith and have a better life? Who you knew your God personally. Look what Paul says in Acts 17:22 to the Greeks. The Greeks, the ones that gave us mythology, they gave us logic, reasoning, the architecture, the government. Look what he tells them in Acts chapter 17, verse 22. "Then Paul stood on Mars Hill and said, Ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things you are too superstitious. For I passed by and beheld your devotions. I found an altar with the inscription, To the unknown God, whom therefore ye ignorantly worship. Him declare I unto you." How ignorantly are you worshiping your God? I've been in the recovery community for decades. I remember one time this guy was doing one of the steps. He was in an inpatient. I was working there, and he asked me, "Well, who's your higher power?" And I told him. And I told him explicitly that it was Jesus Christ and how involved he was in my life and who he was. Now, can you do that too? Can you explain to someone who your higher power is or who your God is? That's my challenge to you. Who is your God? And we'll be discussing more of this verse as time goes on. God bless you.